I would like to hear what Umar's take is on the Project 2025.
You know, with the 2025, when I go down that list, I honestly believe a lot of those agenda items are already being introduced to some level or other. In fact, some of them have even been championed by Democrats as well. The interracial dating and procreation crisis in the Black community is going to create a numerical issue. And once you have more mixed race American Africans than traditional American Africans, America can then completely ignore the rest of us and make the mixed race African the new standard. You have Black people out here crashing out for Kamala Harris. I mean, they're on social media canceling anyone who disagrees with supporting her, and yet you haven't had a single conversation or asked a single question.
And you know what Dr. Wilson says, well, the best way to immobilize a people or organization is to keep them consumed in their own discord, never getting anything done. And that's the game that's been played on us all the time. So until we come up with something, you're going to get the trickle down effect. You're not putting your economic dollar together. You're not culturally sound. You're definitely not spiritually or religiously sound in doing anything. So you're just a bunch of individual people that's out there just run haphazardly doing nothing. And then you sit up here talking about well, why ain't they doing it for you? Why should they do something for you?
Absolutely.
You know, but anyway, that's my take on it.
You know, that inability to engage in non-emotional strategic thinking is a weakness of the American African people. We cannot do it. Even when you have this conversation about Vice President Harris and former President Trump, all the responses you get as to why people voting, not voting, choosing this one or choosing the other, it's emotional. It's not based on strategy. It's not based on the issues. It's, I don't like him. You know, she's Black. You know, it's all emotional reasons why people are doing what they're doing. I hate Trump. You know, Kamala Harris is a Black woman and I want to see somebody who looks like me for a change. That's emotionalism. Those are not sound reasons why you vote or don't vote for somebody because you don't like his personality or you love her complexion. That's insanity. But the problem with American Negroes is we deal with our politics the same way we deal with religion, emotion. How do we choose our pastor? Because we like them. How do we choose our church? I feel good over here. And when we come into politics, we do the same thing. Why did we vote for Barack Obama? He could speak well. He looks good. He got a Black wife. He makes me feel better about myself. We didn't look at the issues. We didn't care about what he said about schools. We didn't care what he said about mass incarceration. We didn't care what he said about reparations because he absolutely did not support it while he was in office. But soon when he got out of office, now he's talking about we might need to have a conversation. So we got to stop being so emotional. We got to get into the habit of engaging in cerebral, non-emotional, strategic thinking. If we're going to be led by our emotions, we will be taken advantage of every time.
You know, that's a perfect segue into the conversation that we had about the National Association of Black Journalists convention that's in progress right now. Earlier in the week, they had the opportunity to interview the former president, and it seemed as though it was an emotional interview, just as you said. And secondly, you also mentioned that there weren't any brothers on the panel. Would you like to expand on your comments about the convention and that interview?
Absolutely. I was disappointed because everybody looked forward to it. I'm sure they had millions of viewers because it was talked about, you know, very well advertised and marketed. And I would just assume, you know, that there would be a gender balance. There's only 3 people, so obviously there's going to be more of one gender than the other. But you could have at least had a brother up there to articulate issues that affect Black men, and for sisters who often talk about the fact that their voice is not heard amongst, you know, a plethora of Black male leaders. I thought they would have been sensitive enough to not engage, you know, in that same sort of biased behavior. But that's exactly what they did. No Black men, no Black male issues raised. They really didn't raise a lot of critical issues for the Black community. To me, it looked much like a Kamala Harris Defense Committee whose job was to simply make, President Trump look like an idiot, which he doesn't need a lot of, help doing. But my thing is, talk about the critical issues. I'll give you one. Donald Trump kept talking about black jobs, in his debate with President Biden a few weeks ago. Well, if Donald Trump wants to bring up the fact that Joe Biden is giving black jobs to the migrants, and he is, given the fact that Donald Trump comes from a corporate background, why don't you ask him about building some industries in the black community, using his corporate relationships to bring some factories and industries into black America to give our people some livable wage jobs so they don't have to engage in petty crime on the streets? That would have been a good question for Donald Trump. What industries are you going to bring to black America? What are you going to do about the school system? What are your plans for criminal justice overhaul? What are you going to do to target gentrification? None of the major issues affecting the American African people were addressed by those three sisters. And I respect them and I love them, but I really believe that it was a missed opportunity, once again, wasted on emotionalism and defense of the Democratic Party platform, as opposed to an advocacy experiment that looks out for black people.
Well, it's interesting. One of your dear brothers, one of your favorite journalists on the planet, Brother Roland Martin, had a front row seat. And after the fact, he did an analysis of the situation, and he talked about all the things that you just mentioned that should have been talked about. Perhaps he should have been on that panel. The 45 would not have been able to respond the same way that he did to those sisters.
I agree.
I think the other thing is it's really questionable as to whether or not he should have even been invited to that party. Because it's my perspective that a much more valuable use could have been made of the moments that they spent with him talking about other things.
Absolutely. Let me ask you this. I heard that they originally extended the invitation to Vice President Harris and she declined it. Is there any truth to that? I was told that it should have been Kamala Harris in that seat and not Trump, but she declined the invite.
Yeah, I'm not aware of why she declined the invite. I do believe that she was invited, and I can verify this because I'm, in all transparency, I'm a member of the National Association of Black Journalists. But I just think that she could have been there, perhaps virtually, if she couldn't make it in person. There were some things, and we really needed to hear from her because we already know what his policies are.
Absolutely. He's clear. He's unapologetic.
Right. So we really need to hear from her in terms of her positions on things like immigration, things like central bank digital currency and cryptocurrency. And I'll just, not to harp on that subject, but I do think that there is some, I guess, movement in Democrats accepting it. You've got folks like Maxine Waters and Elizabeth Warren, who traditionally have been against cryptocurrency, and they've got their feet planted in the sand about that. But if they want to win this election, they're going to have to make a pivot, because people, as I said before, are becoming more aware of it and need to become more aware of the implications of it, and the fact that if we don't understand what's going on, it's going to be used as a weapon against us, as it already has been.
Absolutely.
Yes. So what are some of the other issues that you see as being important in this election, and ways that our folk can come out on top if Democrats get their way?
Hey, Vince, it may be a good piece too of what we talked about a month ago. I would like to hear what Umar's take is on the Project 2025.
Oh, yes. Yes.
With the 2025, when I go down that list, I honestly believe a lot of those agenda items are already being introduced to some level or other. Mm-hmm. In fact, some of them have even been championed by Democrats as well. When I look at the Social Security issue, there are Democrats who also want to do away, with the Social Security. So I when I look at it, I say, yes, these are problem issues. They clearly are. But these aren't new issues, though. It just looks like they basically collected all the things that they've been trying to work on over the past 2 or 3 presidential administrations and put them on the list. But the thing
about they started that since 1970 something. They said they started writing stuff.
You know, it reminded me of Newt Gingrich. Remember his contract on America back in the 1990s? That's the first thing that came to my mind was Newt Gingrich's contract on America. So they come up with these things from time to time, and they are problematic. But here's my question to Black folks, because everybody's talking about the Project 2025. Where is our Project 2025? What are we going to be doing with our $2 trillion and our voting power between now and next year? That's the question. Everybody has an agenda, you know, except Black folks. And to me, that is a very big issue. Another thing, that migrant crisis. That migrant crisis is a big deal because they are purging our people out of Chicago and New York. I mean, to be in a city where you have that many homeless people in Chicago and New York, and to watch people who are not even citizens be given credit cards, to be given childcare, to be given free housing above and beyond Black veterans who actually served in Vietnam, served in the Gulf War. They're on the street begging for food, sleeping under tents. And you got folks who just crossed the border a few weeks ago being put up in 4- and 5-star hotels in Chicago. Public schools that they said they could not afford to operate for Black children, they have reopened and are not only operating these schools for migrant children, but turning the upper floors into apartments for the families to live in, whereas the children could just go downstairs in the morning and go to school. The way that they are rolling out the red carpet for the migrants, I think is crystal clear, in my opinion, that they intend to replace Black people with the brown people. And added to this, gentlemen, is a problem we have, as I popularly call it, the snow bunny crisis, the interracial dating and procreation crisis in the Black community is going to create a numerical issue where one day soon you may have more mixed race African Americans than you have pure blood African Americans, meaning a obviously African mother and an obviously African father. And once you have more mixed race American Africans than traditional American Africans, America can then completely ignore the rest of us and make the mixed race African the new standard of African American in this society. When you look at the amount of mixed race children that we have, and I still consider them African if they psychologically identify with us on a full-time basis. But that does not dismiss the fact that many of them will not identify with us on a full-time basis. They're going to align themselves with the power structure, and you're going to get a situation like you have in South Africa, an entire community of Black people who call themselves colored, who do not in any way, shape, form, or fashion stand in solidarity with the Black South Africans, who in no shape, form, or fashion advocate for the Black South Africans, and in many cases are used by the white power structure against the Black South Africans. We are going to encounter that same thing in America if we keep on making babies with non-African women.
We're running out of time in terms of our 12 o'clock noon time frame, but this idea of reparations. We never have any substantive conversations about the debt that's owed to Black America, but we can pay the Asians and we can compensate other people. And now we're giving immigrants all this money that's coming out of our pockets. You know, it just seems that we need to have a really substantive conversation about that paradigm and what we can do to shift it.
And this goes back to my earlier point that we are still engaging in dysfunctional political behavior. You have Black people out here crashing out for Kamala Harris. I mean, they're on social media canceling anyone who disagrees with supporting her, and yet you haven't had a single conversation or asked a single question. I cannot believe, with the amount of attention that reparations receives in this country, I cannot believe that Kamala Harris has yet to be asked publicly about reparations. And I also believe one of the reasons she did not show up in Chicago is because she was too afraid that she might get asked some serious questions, which we obviously see would not have happened in happenstance. But I believe she was concerned, and her campaign committee was concerned, that if she goes to Chicago this early in her campaign And if she's being asked some serious questions about Black folks that she does not intend to answer correctly, she may begin to lose the momentum. I don't think they're going to allow Kamala Harris to answer any serious questions from Black people until close to election time, because they don't want to kill the momentum. And that is a stain against us. If we are going to let this woman run around, champion herself as an advocate for us, the person we should be putting in office, and give her no questions at all, especially after what Barack Obama did for 8 years of ignoring Black people, then at the end of the day, you know, as Brother Antonio said, the joke is on us. Like, why would anybody pay you any attention? Why would I do anything for Black people if I'm going to get voted in without even having a conversation with Black people? Obama did it, and now Kamala is going to do it.
Well, you know, it's interesting. We talk about this idea of democracy, and one of the major ideas that the Democrat Party is pushing right now is we have a choice between democracy and dictatorship. But when you look at the reality of that situation, where's the democracy if the people of this country didn't have the opportunity to decide who they wanted to run for president, whether it be Biden, whether it be Harris, whether it be RFK or anyone else? You know, I think democracy is largely an illusion. And I think the people of this country are being manipulated emotionally.
Yep.
You're a psychologist, and I wanted to ask you about the former president's state of mind, because clearly he's exemplifying some of the symptoms of narcissism and those of a psychopath. You know, when you look at the way he handled that interview, I mean, you know, he's gaslighting. He's not answering questions.
Absolutely.
You know, and then we get sucked into it.